The winter wind moves through the trees with a sound like rushing water, ancient and constant, sweeping across a landscape that sleeps under a blanket of frost. Tonight, we drift backward through the mist of centuries, leaving behind the hum of the modern world to find a quieter, darker time. Here, the night is not pushed away by electric light, but embraced as a season of rest, deep and absolute. Welcome to this quiet space of history and sleep. Whether you are already resting your head or simply closing your eyes to the day, know that you are safe here, drifting on the slow current of time. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw unclench and allow the rhythm of the past to guide you toward a deep slumber. If you find comfort in these journeys into the past, you may gently tap the like button or subscribe to join us again, though there is no need to move if you are already drifting away. Just let the story carry you. Now, let us step through the veil of years to a November night in 1776. The darkness here is heavy, a tangible weight that presses against the walls of the small wooden house. It is not merely the absence of light, but a thick, velvet presence that wraps around everything. You awaken not to the sound of an alarm, but to the internal rhythm of the body, sensing the approach of dawn long before the sun breaks the horizon. The air in the room is biting and crisp, carrying the scent of old wood, the dry dust of straw, and the faint, lingering memory of wood smoke. Beneath you, the mattress rustles softly, a sack filled with corn husks and straw, suspended on ropes that creak with every small movement. There is a closeness here, a shared warmth, as you lie near the sleeping forms of family, huddled together against the encroaching chill of the late autumn night. To rise in this time is to negotiate with the cold. The wooden floorboards are freezing beneath bare feet, sending a sharp jolt of awareness through the body. The room is steeped in shadow, the only light coming from the faint, dying embers in the great stone hearth. This hearth is the heart of the home, the altar where the fire must never truly die. You kneel before it, the stone rough against your skin, and begin the slow, meditative work of coaxing the flame. There is no rush here, only the patient strike of flint against steel, the catching of a spark on charred cloth, the gentle breath that feeds the orange glow until it licks upward, consuming the kindling. The light blooms slowly, pushing back the shadows, painting the room in hues of amber and gold. The morning ritual is one of layers. To dress is to build a fortress against the elements. Over the linen shift that has warmed you through the night, you pull on stockings of thick wool, tying them just so. Then come the heavy petticoats or breeches, garments woven from the fleece of sheep that grazed these very hills. The fabric is coarse and substantial, smelling of lanolin and earth. You step into leather shoes that are stiff and unyielding, shaped not to the curve of a specific foot, but to the general idea of walking. They are tools more than clothing, designed to separate you from the frozen mud of the yard. There is no vanity in this process, only the practical necessity of covering the body for the labor that awaits. Breakfast is a quiet, somber affair, taken as the gray light of dawn begins to filter through paper-covered windows. The food is simple fuel, a porridge of cornmeal that sits heavy and warm in the stomach, perhaps accompanied by a mug of fermented cider. The cider is tart and cloudy, a safe drink in a world where water can be treacherous. There are no spices to dazzle the palate, only the earthy taste of grain and the faint sweetness of the apple. You eat from a wooden bowl, the spoon worn smooth by years of use, feeling the steam rise against your face. Around you, the house is waking up, the sounds of movement muffled by the low timber ceilings, a symphony of small domestic noises that have echoed in this space for generations. The door opens to the world outside, and the smell of the morning hits you, a complex organic blend of wet leaves, livestock, and the sharp purity of frost. The work of the day is written in the landscape. Wood must be chopped, a rhythmic swinging of the axe that warms the blood and loosens the muscles. Each log is a promise of future warmth, a defense against the winter that is coming. Water must be drawn from the well, the bucket heavy as it rises from the deep earth, the rope wet and biting in the hands. The water sloshes, clear and painfully cold, destined for the kettle or the basin. This labor is not a distraction from life. It is life itself, a constant cyclical conversation with the physical world. In the barn, the air is thick with the heat of animals. The cow turns her head, her breath pluming in the damp air, waiting for the relief of milking. There is a quiet intimacy here between human and beast. The rhythmic sound of milk hitting the wooden pail is a kind of music, steady and calming. The pigs root in the straw, and the chickens scratch at the hard earth. These creatures are not pets, but partners in survival, their lives woven inextricably with yours. The scent of hay and manure is not offensive, but familiar, the smell of sustenance and continuity. It grounds you in the reality of the season, the knowledge that the harvest is in and the long wait for spring has begun. Beyond the fences of the farm, the world stretches out, vast and largely silent. Roads are mere scars in the earth, rutted tracks that turn to glue in the rain and iron in the frost. To travel is an ordeal, a slow, jarring progression that measures distance in days rather than hours. News travels at the speed of a horse, arriving in fragments, rumors of a revolution, of armies moving in the distance, of a congress in Philadelphia. But here on the land, those events feel like storms on the horizon, powerful but distant. The immediate reality is the soil, the wind, and the survival of the household. The war is a shadow that passes over the sun, changing the mood of the day, but rarely stopping the plow. As the sun climbs and then begins its early descent, the day's labor slows. The evening meal is taken as the light fails, the family gathering once more around the protective circle of the hearth. Candles are lit, precious pillars of beeswax or tallow that cast a wavering, buttery light. This is the time for stillness. The darkness outside is total, a void that swallows the trees and the fields. There is no glow from a distant city, no street lamps to guide the way. There is only the moon, the stars, and the fire. The absence of light brings a natural hush to the world. Voices drop to a murmur. The eyes, tired from the day's strain, rest in the soft gloom. The hygiene of this time is simple and earthy. The body is not scrubbed sterile each day, but lives in a natural existence. The scents of labor, of smoke, and of unwashed linen are universal, a shared atmosphere that goes unnoticed. To bathe fully is a rare and laborious undertaking, involving the heating of endless kettles. Instead, one washes the face, the hands, the parts that meet the world. There is an acceptance of the physical self, a lack of separation between the person and the environment. You smell of the wood you burn, the wool you wear, and the animals you tend. It is a human scent, ancient and unmasked. Sleep comes early, dictated by the fading of the fire and the exhaustion of the body. The return to the bed is a relief that transcends time. You strip away the heavy outer layers, shivering briefly before sliding beneath the rough wool blankets. The straw mattress, which seemed so hard in the morning, now feels like a cloud. The warmth of the other bodies in the bed is a necessity, a shared resource against the deep freeze of the night. You lie there, listening to the wind rattle the shutters, feeling the house settle around you. The darkness is complete, pressing against your eyelids, heavy and comforting. In this silence, the worries of the 1776 world drift away. The crops are stored, the wood is stacked, the animals are fed. There is nothing left to do but surrender to the rhythm of rest. The breathing of the room synchronizes, a slow, collective inhalation and exhalation. You are part of a long chain of sleepers, resting in the quiet pauses of history. The cold air is fresh in your lungs, but under the covers you are warm, safe, and still. The ember in the hearth pops once, a soft sound that deepens the silence. And then there is only the dark, the warmth, and the long, slow drift into sleep. The hearth, once a roaring center of industry, has now quieted to a bed of pulsing red coals. Occasionally, a log shifts in the ash, settling deeper into the heat with a soft, crumbling sound that echoes briefly in the stillness. This is the only light that remains, a faint, dying orange glow that paints long, wavering shadows across the timber beams of the ceiling. The room itself has surrendered to the chill of the November night. Away from the immediate warmth of the bedding, the air is sharp enough to see your breath, a ghostly vapor that rises and vanishes in the gloom. Frost begins to fern across the inside of the window panes, delicate patterns of ice that will greet the morning sun, sealing the house in a crystalline silence. Under the heavy weight of the wool blankets, however, a microclimate of comfort exists. The rough fabric, which might have scratched at the skin earlier in the day, now feels protective, a heavy barrier against the encroaching cold. Your body heat, trapped and magnified by the layers, creates a profound sense of security. It is a primitive, essential comfort, the feeling of being a warm, living thing in a frozen world. You are aware of the others sleeping nearby, their breathing steady and rhythmic, a human metronome that marks the passage of time in the dark. In this shared space, there is no loneliness, only the collective hibernation of the household, waiting out the long hours until dawn. In this era, sleep is not always a single, unbroken line. It is common to drift toward the surface of consciousness in the deep middle of the night, entering what is known as the second sleep. You might stir, opening your eyes to the absolute blackness of the room. There is no alarm to check, no glowing screen to fragment the peace. There is only the dark. This waking period is not a disturbance, but a natural pause, a quiet hour to listen to the house settle. The great wooden beams contract in the cold, groaning softly like the hull of a ship at sea. The wind outside presses against the north wall, a low mourning sound that emphasizes the shelter you have found. You lie still, thoughts drifting slowly like leaves on a stream, untethered from the demands of the day. The silence of the pre-industrial world is absolute in a way that is difficult to imagine. There is no distant hum of engines, no electric buzz of appliances, no airplanes crossing the high dark. The world outside is vast and empty. The nearest neighbor is miles away, their own hearth dimmed, their own family asleep. You are an island of warmth in a sea of winter night. This isolation is not frightening, but peaceful. It strips away the unnecessary, leaving only the simple truth of rest. The darkness feels velvety and thick, wrapping around the house, holding it in a suspension of time where nothing is required of you. Slowly, the heaviness returns to your limbs. The brief interlude of the watch of the night begins to fade. The warmth of the bed pulls you back down, a gentle gravity that is impossible to resist. You adjust the quilt, pulling it higher around your shoulders, burying your face in the pillow that smells of dried lavender and straw. The embers in the fireplace have dimmed further, now just faint eyes watching from the dark. The wind continues its song outside, but it is distant now, a lullaby for the land. You close your eyes again, sinking past the surface, drifting down into the deep restorative waters of the second sleep. The night is long, and there is nowhere else you need to be. The night deepens, settling into the heavy, motionless hours that belong entirely to silence. The fire, which had pulsed with faint orange life earlier, has now surrendered its last visible light, leaving only a bed of gray ash that holds a fading memory of heat. The cold inside the room intensifies, creeping from the corners, pressing against the heavy wool that covers you. It is a dry, sharp cold, the kind that stiffens the leather shoes left by the door and freezes the water in the basin into a thin, brittle sheet of ice. Yet this cold only makes the warmth of the bed more profound. You are cocooned in a small, private world of heat, buried beneath layers of quilt and blanket that have been weighed down to trap every ounce of warmth your body generates. The house itself seems to sleep, breathing in the slow, creaking language of old timber. A beam settles overhead with a soft, dull thud, a sound that is familiar and comforting, a reminder of the shelter that holds you safe. Outside, the wind has shifted, dropping from a howl to a low, steady murmur that brushes against the rough-hewn siding. It is the sound of vast, empty distance. There are no engines cutting through the night, no distant hum of highways, only the ancient conversation between the wind and the trees. If you were to listen closely, you might hear the dry rattle of a single branch against the roof, a rhythmic, hypnotic tapping that merges with the steady breathing of the others in the room. Beyond the walls of the house, the farm lies suspended in the frost. The barn, standing silent in the dark yard, holds its own quiet life. The animals there are asleep, huddled together in the straw, their breath creating small clouds of warmth in the freezing air. The cow chews its cud in a slow, meditative rhythm, shifting its weight with a heavy rustle of dry grass. The chickens are motionless on their roosts, heads tucked under wings, waiting for a dawn that is still hours away. Even the land seems to pause, the fields rigid under the starlight, the soil resting beneath a hard crust of frost. There is a sense of suspended animation, a pause in the relentless work of survival, where the only task is to exist and to rest. Time moves differently here in the dark. It is not measured by the glowing digits of a clock or the scheduled demands of a calendar. It is measured by the slow rotation of the stars above the roof, by the gradual cooling of the hearth, by the depth of your own breathing. Hours stretch out, unhurried and full. There is no anxiety about tomorrow, for tomorrow is a distant country that has not yet arrived. There is only this moment, this breath, this heaviness of limbs that feels like sinking into warm water. You are anchored in the present, held fast by the darkness that wraps the world in its soft, impenetrable velvet. Your mind, if it stirs at all, touches briefly on simple things: the texture of the linen sheet against your cheek, the weight of the quilt pressing down on your shoulder, the faint, lingering scent of wood smoke that is woven into the very fabric of the room. These sensations are not sharp. They are soft, blurred edges that signal safety. You drift deeper, past the level of dreams, into the blank, restful void where the body repairs itself. The darkness behind your eyes matches the darkness of the room, a perfect, seamless union of inner and outer peace. There is nothing to do, there is nothing to fix. There is only the long, slow night stretching out before you like a calm sea. The silence that fills the room is not empty. It is a heavy, settled presence built from the accumulation of hours without human sound. The stone hearth, which anchored the evening with its heat, has now cooled to the temperature of the surrounding air. The chimney, a vertical tunnel to the night sky, draws a faint draft, pulling the last memories of smoke up and out into the vastness above. Inside, the darkness has a texture, grainy and thick. It is a darkness that your eyes do not adjust to, because there is no light to gather. You are simply floating in it, a conscious point of warmth in a structure that has become part of the night. Outside, the moon has climbed higher, casting a pale silver light across the frozen yard. If you were to stand at the window, you would see the world transformed into a monochrome etching of black and white. The fences are stark lines against the frost. The trees, stripped of their leaves, stand like sentinels, their branches casting intricate, tangled shadows that do not move. The wind has died down completely, leaving the air still and brittle. It is a stillness so profound that it feels as if the earth itself has stopped turning, pausing to rest in the deepest hollow of the night. The cold continues its slow, patient work. It creeps through the gaps in the clapboards, settles into the floorboards, and thickens the frost on the window panes. But this cold is a distant concern, a reality that exists only beyond the perimeter of your bed. Under the quilts, the air is tropical by comparison, heated by the slow combustion of life. You shift slightly, seeking a cooler patch of linen with your cheek, and the contrast is delicious. The heavy wool tucks closer around your neck, sealing the gap, reinforcing the boundary between you and the winter. In the distance, far beyond the edge of the forest breathes in its own slow rhythm. A branch snaps under the weight of ice, a sharp, singular report that travels for miles in the crisp air before fading into nothing. An owl calls, soft and mournful, a sound that belongs to the ancient world, unchanged for thousands of years. These sounds do not disturb you. They only deepen the sense of solitude and safety. You are small, hidden, and protected. The vastness of the landscape serves only to emphasize the coziness of your shelter. Your breath enters and leaves your body in a slow, steady tide. In the darkness, you can feel the cool air filling your lungs, crisp and clean, tasting of the night. You exhale, and the warmth leaves you, joining the air of the room. This rhythm is the only clock that matters now. In and out, rising and falling. The thoughts that might have lingered The work to be done, the uncertainty of the times, have dissolved completely. There is no past, no future. There is only the weight of the blanket, the softness of the mattress, and the infinite, gentle dark that holds you suspended in peace. The stillness of the room has become a physical weight, pressing down with a gentle, comforting pressure. It is the kind of silence that feels thick, woven from the darkness itself, filling every corner and every gap between the rough-hewn timbers. You can feel the house holding its breath, suspended in the long, frozen hours between midnight and dawn. The air inside is still, settling into layers of cold that hover near the floor, leaving the warmth to rise and gather under the slope of the roof. But you are immune to this separation, buried deep within the nest of bedding, where the temperature is constant and kind. The straw beneath you has ceased its rustling, compressed by hours of rest into a shape that knows your body perfectly. Above you, in the invisible rafters, the wood continues to contract as the night temperature drops. A beam sighs, a low, resonant creak that travels through the frame of the house like a slow pulse. It is not a sound of distress, but of settling, the natural language of a structure built from the forest that surrounds it. The stone hearth, now devoid of even the faintest glow, releases a tiny, sharp click as the masonry cools. These sounds are the heartbeat of the home, familiar and rhythmic, marking the passage of time in a world without clocks. They drift over you, soft and distant, anchoring you to this specific place, this specific moment in the vast, quiet history of the night. Outside, the frost has thickened, transforming the window panes into sheets of opaque, crystalline art. The moonlight, which had earlier cast sharp shadows, now diffuses through the ice, entering the room as a soft, milky glow that barely touches the floor. The world beyond the glass is sealed away, distant and unreachable. The wind has stopped completely, leaving the trees to stand in absolute, frozen statue stillness. The landscape is held in a pause so deep that it feels eternal, as if the earth has stopped its rotation to allow this single peaceful night to stretch on forever. There is no movement in the yard, no movement in the fields, no movement in the woods. There is only the starlight, cold and clear, watching over the sleeping land. Your awareness of the room begins to soften, the boundaries of your body blurring into the warmth that surrounds you. The heavy quilt feels less like a covering and more like an extension of the silence, a soft barrier that filters out the cold and the dark. Your breathing has slowed to match the rhythm of the house, deep and shallow, a quiet tide that rises and falls without effort. The thoughts that might drift across your mind are formless and slow, lacking the sharp edges of the daylight world. They are like clouds passing over a moonlit field, visible for a moment and then dissolving into the dark. Deep in the earth below the floorboards, the winter has put the roots of things to sleep. The sap in the trees is still. The seeds in the garden are frozen in suspension. You are part of this great natural hibernation, a living thing resting in the dormant season. The energy of the summer, the labor of the harvest, the urgency of preparation, all of it is gone. What remains is this profound, heavy rest. You sink further into the mattress, feeling gravity pull you gently downward, past the surface of sleep, toward the center of the earth. The night is a vast, dark ocean, and you are drifting, slowly and safely, toward the bottomless calm of the deep. The earth beneath the house is solid and unmoving, a vast anchor of stone and soil that has held its place through countless winters. You can feel this stability rising up through the floorboards, through the wooden frame of the bed, reaching you even in your suspended state. It is a grounding force, a reminder that while the wind may wander and the temperature may fall, the foundation remains. The house sits heavy on the land, its weight pressing down into the frozen dirt, establishing a permanent, quiet claim against the wildness of the night. This solidity is a comfort that enters your bones, allowing your muscles to release their final tension, trusting that you are held securely by the world itself. High above the roof, beyond the rough shingles and the chimney's cold mouth, the stars are drifting in their slow, ancient arc. They are sharp points of ice-white light, burning in a sky so clear it looks like black glass. There are no clouds to obscure them, no haze from the sleeping earth to soften their brilliance. They wheel overhead in silence, marking the hours with a precision that no clock could ever match. The constellations, the hunter and the bear, look down on the farmhouse just as they looked down on the forest before it was cleared, indifferent and constant. Their light is too faint to penetrate the room, but knowing they are there, watching in their millions, adds to the sense of being a small, protected part of a vast, orderly universe. Inside the room, the darkness has a weight to it, a velvet texture that seems to brush against your skin. It is not a frightening dark, but a restful one, like the inside of a closed hand. The air is still, undisturbed by any movement. Dust motes, invisible now, hang suspended in the space, waiting for the dawn that is still miles away. The smell of the room is the scent of deep winter, dry timber, cold stone, and the faint, clean odor of wool that has been warmed by the body. It is an elemental scent, stripped of all summer sweetness, reduced to the basics of shelter and survival. You breathe it in, cool and purifying, and it settles deep in your chest, slowing your heart rate to match the sluggish, peaceful rhythm of the season. The passage of time here feels circular, not linear. There is no ticking, no forward march of minutes. There is only the deepening of the night, the thickening of the frost, the slow cooling of the world. You are existing in a pause, a gap between the yesterday of labor and the tomorrow of rising. In this gap, there are no requirements. You do not need to be productive or alert or even awake. You only need to be. The silence wraps around you, insulating you from the demands of history, leaving you floating in a pure, timeless present. It is a rare and precious state, this absolute freedom to do nothing but rest. As you sink deeper, the boundaries of the room seem to expand and dissolve. The walls are no longer limits, but distant shores. The ceiling is a vague suggestion of shelter rather than a barrier. You are drifting in a space that is both intimate and infinite, a personal darkness that belongs only to you. The cold air on your face is the only reminder of the outside world, a sharp contrast to the profound, heavy warmth that engulfs the rest of your body. You are safe. You are warm. You are deeply, irrevocably asleep, carried on the slow, silent current of the night toward a morning that will arrive in its own time, without your help or worry.
The hours of the night have now stretched into that deep, nameless time where the concept of dawn feels like a rumor from another life. The darkness has settled into the very grain of the wood that shelters you, a permanent quiet that seems to have existed long before you arrived and will remain long after you leave. The air in the room has lost the last traces of the day's activity, becoming still and neutral, a blank canvas of cold. You are no longer waiting for sleep, nor are you fighting it. You are simply inhabiting it, existing in a state of suspension where the heavy wool of the blanket is the only gravity that matters. The weight pressing down on you is not a burden, but an anchor, keeping you tethered to the warmth, while your mind floats free in the expansive silence. Outside, the moon has continued its slow, cold arc across the sky, shifting the shadows in the room by imperceptible degrees. A beam of pale light that had rested on the floorboards has now climbed the wall, illuminating the rough texture of the plaster and the dark knot of a timber beam. It moves with the patience of a sundial, marking the passage of the night without a sound. The frost on the windowpane has grown thicker, an intricate map of ice that distorts the world beyond, turning the trees and the barn into vague, ghostly shapes. Even if you were to look, you would not see the familiar yard of the daylight hours. You would see only a landscape of silver and black, locked in a frozen hush that belongs entirely to the winter. The stillness is so complete that it begins to have a sound of its own, a low, resonant hum that lives in the inner ear. It is the sound of blood moving in your veins, the sound of your own slow, steady existence. In the crowded, noisy world of the future, such silence is rare, often filled with the buzz of electricity or the distant rumble of traffic. But here, in 1776, silence is a natural resource, abundant and deep. It wraps around the house like a heavy drift of snow, muffling the world, dampening thought, smoothing out the edges of worry until everything is soft and indistinct. You are resting in the center of a great quiet, protected by miles of empty darkness. Beneath you, the straw mattress holds the scent of the summer fields where the grass was cut. Faint and dry, it is a smell of sunshine and earth, trapped in the dried stalks and released now by the warmth of your body. It is a subtle reminder of the cycle of the seasons, of the heat that once was and the heat that will return. But that return is distant, for now the world is defined by this small, warm hollow in the bedding. Your breath creates a rhythm that matches the creaking of the house, a slow inhalation that draws in the cool night air, and a slow exhalation that releases the day's fatigue. There is no urgency in this breath. There is only the simple, repetitive act of being alive in the quiet dark. As the night deepens further, the sense of separation between you and the house begins to fade. You are part of the room now, just another quiet presence in the shadows. The furniture, the hearth, the walls, and the sleeper are all suspended together in the amber of the night. The cold that presses against the roof is held at bay. The wind that whispers around the chimney is a story told to someone else. You are safe in the core of the home, drifting on a tide of rest that is wide and deep and slow. The darkness is not empty. It is full of peace, full of rest, full of the long, slow hours that heal the mind and mend the body.
You sink down, further down, into the comfort of the unmoving night. The stillness of the room has deepened into a kind of permanence, as if the house has always been this quiet and will always remain so. The air, cool and motionless, rests against your skin like a sheer, weightless fabric. There is no draft now to stir the dust or flicker the unseen shadows. The atmosphere is settled, heavy with the specific gravity of the late night. It is a time when the world stops breathing, a long suspended pause between the exhalation of yesterday and the inhalation of tomorrow. You are existing in this pause, a passenger on a ship that has dropped anchor in a calm, starless bay. The walls of the room, built from trees felled in a nearby wood, stand as silent guardians. They hold the memory of the forest, the strength of oak and pine that once weathered storms on the hillside. Now they weather the winter night for you, absorbing the cold wind so that you do not have to feel it. You can sense their solidity in the dark, a protective shell that separates the fragile warmth of your bed from the vast, freezing emptiness of the landscape. This separation is absolute. Inside, there is life and heat. Outside, there is only the frost and the silence. Your body has fully surrendered to the mattress, the straw beneath you no longer just a surface, but a mold that cradles every curve and heavy limb. The tension that holds muscles tight during the day has unspooled completely. Your hands lie open and loose. Your legs are heavy, sinking into the soft depression of the bed. The wool blankets, coarse and thick, have warmed to your temperature, creating a sealed environment where the cold cannot reach. You are an island of heat in the ocean of the room, self-contained and perfectly at rest. In this deep quiet, the mind ceases to wander. The thoughts that usually crowd the waking hours, the lists of chores, the worries of the season, the news of the war, have dissolved like mist in the sun. There is nothing to think about, because there is nothing to be done. The darkness demands nothing from you. It asks only that you close your eyes and drift. It is a gentle, permissive silence, allowing you to let go of your identity, your history, and your plans, leaving only the simple, rhythmic fact of your breathing. As the night stretches on, the boundaries of time continue to blur. It does not matter if it is 2 in the morning or 4. It does not matter how long you have slept or how long remains until dawn. The night is a vast, singular moment. You are floating in the center of it, untouched by urgency. The darkness behind your eyelids is the same as the darkness of the room, a seamless unity of peace. You drift lower, deeper, past the shallows of dreams, sinking slowly toward the quiet, sunless bottom of the night, where the rest is total and the silence is complete. The weight of the handmade quilts presses down on you with a reassuring, heavy gravity. In a modern world of lightweight synthetics, this sensation is almost forgotten. The feeling of being physically anchored to the bed by layers of dense, woven wool. It is a comforting pressure, like a firm hand on your shoulder, signaling that the time for movement has passed. Under this heavy shell, your body heat has created a perfect tropical microclimate. You can feel the warmth radiating back to you from the mattress, a stored energy that defies the freezing air hovering just inches above your face. It is a contrast that makes the sleep deeper. the awareness of the cold room serving only to sweeten the sanctuary of the bed. The house around you continues its slow, nightly conversation with the temperature. Somewhere in the wall, a nail pops with a sharp, singular sound as the wood contracts in the deepening freeze. It is not a noise of alarm, but of endurance. The structure is adjusting, settling, huddling in on itself, just as you are. You listen to the silence that follows, a silence that seems to rush back into the space to fill the void the sound left behind. It is a thick, velvet silence, absorbing the world, muffling the senses, wrapping the room in a protective layer of quiet that feels as solid as the timber beams themselves. Your breathing has found a slow, steady cadence that matches the stillness of the room. The air you inhale is crisp and dry, carrying the faint, clean scent of the cold stone hearth. It enters your lungs like a cooling draft, refreshing and pure, before being exhaled as warmth. This rhythm, this exchange of cold air for warm, is the only movement that matters. It is a hypnotic cycle, rising and falling, a tide that pulls you gently away from the shores of consciousness. There is no need to steer, no need to navigate. You are simply carried by the current of your own breath, drifting further into the vast, calm waters of the night. Far beneath the floorboards, the earth is locked in its own deep slumber. The frost has driven deep into the soil, gripping the roots of the dormant garden, holding the sleeping seeds in a suspended state of waiting. You are connected to this great natural pause. The urgency of growth, of harvest, of labor has all been suspended. The land is resting, gathering its strength for a spring that is months away, and you are resting with it. There is a profound sense of rightness in this dormancy, a permission to be still, to be unproductive, to simply exist in the dark and wait for the world to turn. As the moments lengthen and blur, the darkness behind your eyes becomes a vast, comfortable space. It is not empty, but filled with a sense of presence and peace. The edges of your thoughts soften until they lose their shape entirely, dissolving into the general sensation of warmth and heaviness. You are no longer a person with a name and a history. You are simply a point of awareness floating in the quiet. The night holds you, the bed supports you, and the heavy wool blankets keep you safe. You sink down past the level of dreams into the deep, restorative silence that lies at the very bottom of the sleep. The silence that fills the room has a texture now, a density that feels almost liquid, as if the house has been submerged in a deep, still ocean of night. It presses gently against the walls, filling the gaps between the rough logs and settling into the corners where the shadows are deepest. There is no vibration in the floorboards, no shudder in the window frames. The wind that had earlier whispered around the eaves has held its breath, leaving the world outside in a state of absolute, frozen suspension. You are floating in this suspension, weightless despite the heavy blankets, carried by the invisible, slow-moving current of the hours that stretch toward morning. Beneath the heavy quilt, the air is still and thick with warmth. It is a heat that smells faintly of dried herbs and old wool, a scent that belongs to the history of the house itself. The straw ticking of the mattress, which might rustle during the restless turning of the evening, is now silent, compressed into a shape that mirrors your own. You have become part of the bed, just as the bed is part of the house, and the house is part of the land. There is no distinction left between the sleeper and the shelter. You are simply a warm, breathing center in a world of cold stone and wood. High above the chimney, the great wheel of the sky continues its slow revolution. The stars, sharp and cold as diamonds, drift westward, marking time in a language of light that no one is awake to read. The constellation of the hunter steps silently over the horizon of the trees, his belt shining down on the frosted roof. The moonlight has shifted, sliding across the floorboards in a pale, elongated rectangle that changes position so slowly it seems motionless. This celestial movement is the only activity in the universe, a silent clockwork that turns without gears, without sound, without urgency. Your breath enters and leaves your body in a rhythm that is ancient and automatic. It is the same rhythm that moved the chests of your ancestors, the same rhythm that will move the chests of those who come after. In the deep quiet of 1776, stripped of all modern noise, this sound is the only reality. It is a soft, steady tide, washing in and washing out, anchoring you to the present moment. Each exhalation releases a little more of the day's tension, loosening the knot of muscles in your back, smoothing the skin of your forehead. You are unraveling, strand by strand, into the peaceful simplicity of rest. The cold that waits outside the glass is a concept you can understand but do not have to feel. It is there, painting the world in shades of blue and white, freezing the mud in the road and thickening the ice on the trough. But it is a distant power, held at bay by the thick walls and the heavy door. Inside, you are in a fortress of warmth. The darkness behind your eyes is soft and welcoming, a vast, comfortable space where thoughts drift like slow clouds and dissolve before they can form shapes. You sink down, further down, settling into the bedrock of the night, where the silence is total and the sleep is without end. The darkness in the room has acquired a stillness that feels ancient, as if the air itself has ceased to circulate and is simply resting. It is a dense, velvety blackness that fills the space between the floor and the rafters, absorbing the shapes of the furniture until only the memory of the room remains. You are floating in this void, untethered from the visual world. The heavy wool blankets that cover you are the only boundary that defines where the room ends and you begin. They press down with a comforting, uniform weight, anchoring you to the mattress and creating a sensation of being held, secure and immobile, in the very center of the night. Beneath the layers of bedding, the straw mattress has settled completely under your weight. The rustling of the dried stalks has stopped, the material having compressed into a quiet, supportive shape that knows the contours of your body perfectly. The ropes of the bed frame, pulled tight against the wooden rails, hold you suspended above the cold floor. There is a faint, rhythmic creak if you shift, a sound of wood and hemp that is the voice of the bed itself, a whisper of support that has been heard in this house for decades. It is a primitive, organic comfort, born of natural materials that have been gathered, dried, and woven to serve this single purpose of rest. The cold air of the room brushes against the only exposed part of you, your face. It is sharp and clean, carrying the scent of the frost that has now fully encased the house. You can feel the temperature on your cheek, a stark contrast to the tropical warmth of the bed. This contrast is delicious, a reminder of the sanctuary you have created. You burrow slightly deeper into the pillow, pulling the quilt up until it tucks under your chin, sealing the warmth in. The cold is a presence in the room, a silent guest, but it is kept at bay by the wool and the heat of your own blood. Outside, the moon continues its slow, silent migration across the sky. Its light has moved from the floor to the wall, turning the rough plaster into a landscape of pale gray and deep shadow. The movement is imperceptible to the eye, visible only in the changing geometry of the dark. The world beyond the window is locked in a silver stasis. The trees stand motionless, their branches traced with ice. The road is a ribbon of frozen mud, empty of travelers, empty of sound. The war, the harvest, the town, all of these things belong to the daylight. Here, in the deep trough of the night, there is only the moon, the frost, and the sleeping house. Your breath has slowed to a rhythm that is almost geological in its patience. There is no rush to inhale, no rush to exhale. Each breath is a long, slow tide that rises and falls without effort. In the silence, you can hear the faint sound of your own respiration, a soft wind in a quiet canyon. It is the sound of life persisting in the dormancy of winter. You drift on this rhythm, your thoughts becoming as slow and heavy as your limbs. The night stretches out before you and behind you, a vast, unbroken field of peace. You are sinking deeper into it, becoming part of the quiet, part of the dark, part of the long, slow slumber of the earth.
The earth beneath the floorboards, frozen and solid as iron, holds the house in a grip that feels permanent. You are resting on a foundation that goes down deep, past the frost line, into the ancient, silent rock that has not moved for 1,000 years. This stability travels up through the stone footings, through the heavy oak sills, and into the very frame of the bed that supports you. It is a profound, grounding sensation, the feeling of being held by the planet itself. The house is not merely sitting on the ground, it is anchored to it, a small, warm outgrowth of the landscape that shelters you from the vast, indifferent sky. Inside the room, the darkness has become a physical substance, thick and soft like velvet. It fills the spaces between the furniture, pooling in the corners and draping over the rafters. It is a darkness that is kind to the eyes, demanding nothing, showing nothing. There is no strain to see, for there is nothing to see. There is only the feeling of the space around you, defined not by sight, but by the subtle shift of air currents and the protective weight of the walls. You are floating in this void, weightless and unburdened, drifting on a black sea that has no shore and no tide. The air in the room is motionless, having settled into layers of stillness that remain undisturbed by any draft. The cold has deepened, sharpening the edges of the silence. It presses against the heavy wool of the blankets, seeking a way in but finding none. The barrier between you and the winter is absolute. You are encased in warmth, a sealed vessel of heat that floats in the cold ocean of the night. This contrast, the biting air on the tip of your nose and the tropical warmth of your limbs, creates a sensation of supreme luxury. It is the simple, primal joy of being safe when the world outside is hostile. High above, the moon has continued its silent journey, sliding behind the skeleton of a great oak tree. The light that filters through the branches casts a complex, lace-like pattern of shadows across the floorboards. These shadows do not move. They are painted onto the wood in shades of silver and charcoal, a frozen image of the winter night. If you were to watch them, you would see no change for an hour, perhaps two. Time has slowed to the pace of the stars, a geological rhythm that makes human concerns feel small and distant. You are part of this slow time now, breathing in the rhythm of the constellations. The hearth, which once crackled with the energy of the fire, is now a silent cave of stone. The ash lies in soft, gray drifts, cooling slowly, releasing the last ghosts of the day's heat into the chimney. The stone itself, gathered from the fields by hands that are now resting, retains a faint memory of the fire. It radiates a subtle, dying warmth that battles the chill for a few more hours before succumbing to the freeze. This silent struggle between the heat and the cold is the only drama in the room, a quiet, invisible contest that happens every night while you sleep. Your breath creates a small, personal cloud in the dark, a rhythm of moisture and warmth that rises and vanishes, in and out, deep and slow. The sound is a soft whisper, the only noise in a world of silence. It is a comforting sound, a reminder of your own existence in the void. You listen to it, and it becomes a mantra, a repetitive, hypnotic signal that guides you deeper into relaxation. The tightness in your shoulders has dissolved, the tension in your jaw has vanished. You are loose, heavy, and completely at peace. Beyond the frosted glass, the landscape is locked in a crystal stasis. The fields are stiff sheets of white. The river, miles away, moves sluggishly under a ceiling of ice. The woods are silent cathedrals of bark and snow, waiting for a dawn that feels impossibly distant. Nothing moves out there. The deer are bedded down in the thickets. The birds are huddled in the pines. The entire world has paused, taking a deep, collective breath in the darkness. You are simply one more sleeping thing in a world of sleepers, connected to the deer and the birds by the shared necessity of rest. The night stretches on, vast and endless. It is a kingdom of quiet, ruled by the moon and the frost. You are a welcome guest here, protected and hidden. The darkness wraps you in its arms, smoothing away the edges of your thoughts, blurring the boundaries of yourself. You are sinking down, past the surface of dreams, into the deep, black water of the second sleep. It is a place of total restoration, where the mind is silent and the body is healed. You drift, weightless and free, carried by the slow, silent current of eternity before dawn.
The silence in the room has a quality of depth now, like water in a deep well. It is not merely the absence of noise, but a heavy, settling presence that fills the space between the floorboards and the rafters. The house, built from the timber of the surrounding forest, seems to have absorbed the stillness of the trees. It stands motionless in the grip of the frost, its joints locked by the cold, its breathing shallow and slow. You are resting in the belly of this wooden beast, protected by its ribs of oak and pine, held safe from the biting wind that prowls the darkness outside. Beneath the heavy quilts, the air is thick with warmth. It is a humid, personal heat that smells faintly of linen and sleep. The wool blankets, woven tight to trap the air, press down with a comforting weight that feels like a physical embrace. This pressure is grounding. It tells your body that there is nowhere to go, nothing to do, no movement required. You are pinned gently to the mattress, held in place by the simple gravity of the bedding. The contrast between this tropical pocket of air and the freezing room beyond is sharp and satisfying. You can feel the cold touching the tip of your nose, a tiny icy reminder of the sanctuary you inhabit. The moon has moved further along its arc, and the light in the room has shifted. The patch of silver that lay across the floorboards has climbed the wall, illuminating the rough texture of the plaster and the dark iron hook near the door. The light is pale and cold, devoid any warmth, a ghostly reflection of the frozen world outside. It reveals nothing clearly, only suggesting shapes in the gloom, the curve of a chair back, the corner of a chest, the dull glint of a pewter mug left on the table. These objects are silent companions, resting in the dark just as you are, their purpose suspended until the sun returns. Outside, the landscape is a study in stasis. The fields are stiff and white, the furrows of the plow locked under a hard crust of frost. The grass in the pasture is brittle, each blade encased in a tiny sheath of ice. If a wind were to blow, the trees would rattle like dry bones, but there is no wind now. The air is dead calm. The branches of the great oaks stand rigid against the stars, their silhouettes black and sharp. Nothing moves in this frozen tableau. The fox is curled deep in its den. The owl sits motionless on its branch. The entire world is holding its breath, waiting out the long, cold hours of the wolf moon. Your own breathing has become part of this universal quiet. It is slow and shallow, a rhythmic rise and fall that requires no conscious effort. You inhale the cool, dry air of the room, and you exhale a soft cloud of warmth. In and out. The sound is barely a whisper, lost in the heavy silence of the house. Your heart beats with a steady, sluggish throb, pushing blood through your veins in a slow, warming tide. You can feel the pulse in your fingertips, in your temples, a gentle reminder of the life that persists even in the deepest dormancy. The passage of time feels fluid and indistinct. There is no ticking clock to slice the night into seconds and minutes. There is only the gradual deepening of the cold and the slow rotation of the earth. You are drifting in a river of time that flows without current, without destination. The anxieties of the day, the salt to be traded, the wood to be chopped, the news from the war have dissolved completely. They belong to a different person, a waking person who exists in the sunlight. You are the sleeping person, the one who belongs to the shadow and the silence. As you sink deeper into the mattress, the boundaries of your body seem to soften. You are no longer separate from the bed or the room. You are a warm center of consciousness, floating in the dark. The heaviness in your limbs is pleasant, a leaden relaxation that makes movement impossible and non-necessary. You are anchored here, safe and secure. The darkness behind your eyes is vast and velvety, a comfortable void where thoughts drift like slow clouds and vanish before they can take shape. Far beneath the floor, the roots of the house grip the frozen earth. The stones of the foundation are cold and hard, older than the forest, older than the farm. They hold you up, silent and unmoving. You can feel their stability rising through the floor, through the bed frame, into your very bones. It is the stability of the earth itself, patient and enduring. You rest on this foundation, trusting it to hold you through the night, trusting the dawn to arrive in its own time. For now, there is only the dark, the warmth, and the deep, endless peace of the winter sleep. The night has now reached its absolute nadir, that deep, silent trough between the setting of the moon and the first gray suggestion of dawn. It is the hour when the cold is most ambitious. pressing against the clapboards with a weight that feels almost physical. The house, however, stands firm. It is a vessel of preserved warmth, a wooden ship navigating a sea of ice. You can feel the solidity of the shelter in the way the air holds still, refusing to circulate, settling into a heavy, peaceful stratification. The floor is cold, the ceiling is cool, but here, in the middle, in the hollow of the bed, the temperature is perfect, maintained by the slow, steady furnace of your own life. There is a particular quality to the silence at this hour. It is not just the absence of noise, but the presence of a vast, dampening weight. It is as if the snow that covers the distant hills has also covered the house, muffling the world, wrapping everything in a blanket of white quiet. If a board creaks now, it sounds soft and apologetic, quickly swallowed by the dark. The rhythmic breathing of the others in the room, the faint whistle of a nose, the deep sigh of a turning sleeper, creates a backdrop of human presence that is deeply reassuring. You are not alone in the void. You are part of a small, sleeping tribe, huddled together against the vastness of the winter night. Your own body feels heavy, sinking further into the embrace of the mattress. The straw ticking, which might have felt rough hours ago, has softened under your weight, conforming to the shape of your shoulders and hips. The sensation of the bed is no longer one of lying on top of something, but of being held within something. You are cocooned, buried, hidden. The heavy wool of the blankets feels like a shield, a thick woven barrier that separates the tender vulnerability of sleep from the sharp edges of the frost. This heaviness is a gift. It anchors you, preventing your mind from floating away into worry, keeping you tethered to the simple, physical pleasure of rest. Outside, in the barn that stands as a dark silhouette across the yard, the animals are participating in this same long wait. The cow is kneeling in the straw, her legs tucked beneath her, her chewing slowed to a meditative rhythm. The horse stands in his stall, one hind leg cocked, head lowered in a doze. Their breath rises in the dark, mingling with the steam of their bodies, creating a pocket of warmth that mirrors your own. There is a kinship in this shared dormancy. Every living thing on the farm, from the family in the bed to the mice in the grain bin, is united by the need to be still, to conserve heat, to wait for the sun to return. You are part of this great, quiet community of the sleeping. The darkness behind your eyes is a rich, deep black, devoid of patterns or light. It is a restful space, a cavern where thoughts go to hibernate. The concerns of the harvest, the trade, the war, these things feel abstract now, belonging to a world that is miles away and hours in the future. In this moment, there is only the sensation of the pillow against your cheek and the slow hydraulic pull of sleep dragging you down. You surrender it willingly. You let go of the tension in your hands, uncurling your fingers. You let go of the tightness in your brow, smoothing the skin. You are becoming as still as the house, as silent as the frost, as deep as the night itself. High above, the stars continue their cold, indifferent watch. They look down on the roof, on the chimney with its wisp of heat, on the frozen fields that stretch out to the horizon. They have seen this farm in summer, green and alive with insects. They see it now, white and silent as a bone. Their light is ancient, traveling across unimaginable distances to touch the frost on your windowpane. Knowing they are there, circling in their perfect clockwork orbits, adds a layer of cosmic peace to your rest. The universe is orderly. The stars are in their places. The earth is turning. You can sleep knowing that the great machinery of the night is working perfectly without your help. Your breath enters and leaves in a long, slow tide. In, out. The air is cool in your throat, warm as it leaves your lips. It is the only movement left in a motionless world. You drift on this rhythm, floating further out onto the dark water of sleep. The shore is gone. The horizon is gone. There is only the gentle rocking of the breath, the warmth of the wool, and the deep, endless comfort of the winter dark. You sink down, past the level of dreams, into the quiet, heavy, healing silence of the deep night. The stillness within the room has deepened into a kind of permanence, a heavy, settled quality that feels as though it has been undisturbed for centuries. The air is motionless, resting in layers of cool silence that hover above the floorboards. There is no draft to stir the dust, no flicker of light to shift the shadows. The house has turned inward, closing its eyes against the winter, becoming a sealed vessel of quiet. You are resting at the very center of this vessel, floating in the calm, dark water of the night. The walls, built of solid timber, stand as silent sentinels, holding back the vast, empty space of the fields and the forest. High on the windowpane, the frost has thickened into a complex, crystalline landscape. Delicate ferns of ice and jagged ridges of white have grown across the glass, sealing the view of the outside world completely. The moonlight, trying to enter, is scattered by this ice, diffusing into a soft, milky glow that barely touches the darkness of the room. It is a ghostly light, cold and dim, that paints the foot of the bed in a faint shade of gray. It does not illuminate so much as it reveals the texture of the dark, showing the rough grain of the wood and the heavy drape of the wool blankets. This ice-filtered light is the only connection to the world beyond, a silent reminder of the freezing beauty that waits outside. Buried beneath the quilts, your body has lost all sense of its own boundaries. The heat you have generated is trapped close to your skin, creating a blurred edge where you end and the bed begins. The heavy wool presses down with a reassuring, constant pressure, like a hand resting on your back. It anchors you to the mattress, preventing you from floating away, keeping you tethered to the deep, physical comfort of the straw and the linen. The straw itself has ceased to rustle. It has accepted your weight, compressing into a quiet, supportive mold that cradles you in the dark. The silence is not empty. It is full of the presence of the house. You can feel the weight of the roof pressing down on the walls, the grip of the joinery holding the beams together. The structure is resting just as you are, its timbers contracting slightly in the cold, settling into a dormant state. Occasionally, a faint sound emerges from the wood, a soft sigh, a dull tick, as the house adjusts to the temperature of the night. These are comfortable sounds, the language of shelter. They tell you that the walls are strong, that the roof is tight, that the sanctuary holds. Your breath enters and leaves in a rhythm that is slow and oceanic. It is a long, shallow tide that washes through you, carrying away the last debris of waking thought. Inhale the cool, dry air. Exhale the warm, soft breath. The cycle repeats, over and over, a hypnotic pendulum that swings you deeper into relaxation. There is no effort in it, no conscious will. It is the automatic, ancient rhythm of life sustaining itself in the dark. With each breath, you sink a little lower, drifting down through the layers of the night, past the surface of dreams, into the profound, heavy quiet of the deep sleep. Time has detached itself from the movement of the sun and the stars. It has become a pool of still water, deep and wide. You are floating in it, suspended in a moment that feels endless. The anxieties of the future, the memories of the past, they have all dissolved into the blackness. There is only the sensation of the pillow, the weight of the blanket, and the vast, comforting silence. You are safe. You are hidden. You are deeply, irrevocably asleep, carried by the slow, silent current of the winter night toward a dawn that is still a lifetime away. The night is now standing still, holding its breath in the long, dark valley between the moon's zenith and its eventual decline. There is no sense of forward motion in the room, only a deep, abiding presence of rest. The darkness has settled into the grain of the floorboards and the cracks of the plaster, becoming a permanent weight that anchors the house to the earth. You are resting at the bottom of this sea of night, protected by the heavy timber hull of the house. The pressure of the blankets feels like the pressure of deep water, a uniform, comforting embrace that holds you still and safe. It is a stillness that goes into the bone, quieting the nerves, slowing the blood, turning the body into a vessel of pure peace. The air in the room, undisturbed for hours, has stratified into layers of cold. Near the ceiling, where the last ghost of the fire's warmth gathered, it is cool. Near the floor, where the draft creeps under the door, it is freezing. But where you are, buried in the middle, the air is tempered by the heat of your own life. You breathe in the cold, tasting the dry, clean scent of the frost, and you breathe out warmth, creating a tiny, invisible climate of comfort around your face. This exchange is the only commerce left in the world. It is a slow, rhythmic trade that requires no thought, a simple biological pact between you and the winter night. High above the roof, the stars have rotated further into the west. They are burning with a cold, hard brilliance that no one is awake to see. The constellations that marked the beginning of the night have vanished behind the tree line, replaced by new patterns of light that watch over the sleeping farm. The universe continues its vast, silent clockwork motion, turning on an axis of infinite precision. Knowing this movement is happening, massive and silent above your head, adds to the feeling of smallness and safety. You do not need to hold the world up. You do not need to keep the stars in their courses. You only need to lie here, warm and heavy, and let the cosmos turn without you. Beneath the floor, the earth has frozen solid, locking the stones of the foundation in a grip of iron. The soil is dormant, its energy pulled deep into the root systems, waiting for a spring that is merely a distant promise. You are connected to this dormancy. The heaviness in your limbs mimics the heaviness of the stones. The slowness of your thoughts mimics the slowness of the sap in the winter trees. You have synced your rhythm to the rhythm of the land. entering a state of hibernation where nothing is wasted and everything is preserved. It is a deep restorative pause, a time to simply exist in the dark and gather strength from the silence. The darkness behind your eyes is a soft, endless space. It is not empty, but filled with a texture like velvet, rich and soothing. Thoughts drift through this space like slow, heavy clouds, unraveling before they can form into words. There is no anxiety here, no planning, no memory. There is only the sensation of the pillow supporting your head and the wool blanket weighing down your shoulders. You sink further into this comfort, feeling the mattress rise up to meet you, holding you suspended in the void. You are drifting deeper and deeper, carried by the slow, silent current of the night toward the very center of sleep. Outside, the silence of the landscape is absolute. The wind has died completely. The trees are statues of bark and ice. The river in the valley is a ribbon of silence under the stars. Nothing moves, nothing breathes. The world has stopped, pausing in the deep cold trough of the night to rest. You are part of this stillness, one calm center in a world of calm. The peace is total, the rest is endless. You float on, weightless and free, sinking down into the profound, heavy, healing dark that lies at the bottom of the world. The silence in the room is not a void, but a heavy, protective substance that fills the space between the floor and the beams. It is the accumulated quiet of 100 years of nights, stored in the grain of the wood and the cracks of the plaster. You can feel it pressing against your skin, soft and cool, settling over you like a second invisible blanket. The house has stopped its subtle shifting. The settling groans of the timber have ceased, leaving only the profound, motionless quiet of the deep night. You are resting in the center of this silence, a warm, grieving ember in a world that has gone cold and still. The air you breathe is crisp, carrying the mineral scent of the stone hearth and the faint dry dust of the straw mattress. It is old air, trapped in the house for the winter, recycled and warmed by the lives within. It tastes of safety. It tastes of enclosure. With every inhalation, you draw the stillness of the room into your lungs, and with every exhalation, you release the last of the day's momentum. The rhythm is slow, a long, leisurely cycle that mimics the wind outside, rising and falling without haste. You are synchronized with the house, breathing as it breathes, resting as it rests. Outside, the darkness is absolute. The moon has slipped behind a bank of high, thin clouds, dimming the silver light that washed the floorboards earlier. Now the room is returned to a deep, uniform gray, where shapes are felt rather than seen. The chest at the foot of the bed is a dense shadow. The chair by the hearth is a vague outline. These objects have lost their solidity in the dark, becoming fluid and dreamlike. They wait in the gloom, patient and silent, anchoring the room in the physical world while you drift in the spiritual one. Far beyond the walls, the well in the yard holds a circle of black water deep within the earth. It is perfectly still, a mirror facing the dark sky, unrippled by any wind. Down there, below the frost line, the earth is damp and constant, unaffected by the freezing temperatures above. You feel a connection to this deep, hidden water. Your sleep is like that well, deep, dark, and undisturbed. The surface of your mind is smooth as glass, reflecting nothing, holding nothing, simply existing in the quiet of the earth. You are sinking toward that depth, toward the place where the water is still and the silence is eternal. The cold that presses against the exterior of the house is a vast, heavy ocean. It pushes against the windows, seeks the cracks in the chinking, tests the seal of the door. But the house is a fortress. The oak logs, hewn by hand and stacked with care, hold the line. You are aware of this protection in a visceral way. The contrast between the freezing void outside and the pocket of warmth inside is the most comforting sensation in the world. It is the feeling of having won a small, quiet victory against the elements. You are warm, you are dry, you are safe. Your body has become heavy, sinking so deeply into the mattress that you feel merged with it. The sensation of touch has dulled, leaving only a general awareness of warmth and weight. The wool blankets are a heavy hand holding you down, insisting on rest. The pillow is a soft cloud supporting your head. You could not move if you wanted to, and you do not want to. The paralysis of sleep is a gift, a release from the obligation of action. You are free to simply be heavy, to be still, to surrender to the gravity of the night. Time stretches out, thin and transparent. The hours before dawn are a vast, unmapped territory. You are traveling through them slowly, drifting on a current that flows nowhere. There is no destination. There is no arrival. There is only the journey through the dark, a passage of peace that requires nothing from you. The night wraps you in its arms, rocking you gently on the tide of your own breathing. You sink down, past the memory of the light, past the expectation of the morning, into the deep, timeless comfort of the winter sleep.
The darkness has settled into a state of absolute permanence, a deep and velvety void that seems to have swallowed the walls of the room entirely. You are no longer conscious of the dimensions of the space. The corners have dissolved, the ceiling has lifted away into the shadows, and the floor has become a distant concept. All that remains is the warm, suspended island of the bed. You are floating in a vast, quiet ocean of night, held up by the unseen strength of the ropes and the soft compression of the straw. It is a feeling of total isolation, but it is an isolation without loneliness. It is the peaceful solitude of a seed buried deep in the winter earth, waiting in the dark for a distant season. The air in the room is motionless, heavy with the chill that has seeped through the timber during the long hours of the night. It hovers just above the heavy wool of the blankets, a silent, invisible presence. But it cannot touch you. You are sealed away in a fortress of warmth, a microclimate generated by your own body and preserved by the dense layers of bedding. The contrast is exquisite. The knowledge of the freezing room only serves to deepen the pleasure of the heat that surrounds you. You burrow a fraction of an inch deeper, pulling the quilt tighter, feeling the rough texture of the wool against your chin, a tactile reminder of the protection you possess. High above the roof,
The great constellations continue their slow, majestic rotation around the pole star. The sky is a dome of black ice, pierced by the cold white fire of 1,000 distant suns. They look down on the sleeping farmhouse, on the frozen fields, on the silent forests, indifferent and beautiful. Their light travels through the vacuum of space, through the bitter cold of the atmosphere, to touch the frost that coats the shingles. Knowing that this vast, silent machinery is turning overhead, precise and unstoppable, allows you to surrender your own need for control. The universe is holding its course. You are free to let go. Beneath the floorboards, the silence of the foundation is profound. The stones, gathered from the fields by hands long since at rest, are locked together in the grip of the frost. They do not shift, they do not settle, they simply endure, bearing the weight of the house and the sleepers within it. You can sense this ancient stability rising up through the dark. It anchors you to the ground, preventing you from drifting away, grounding your rest in the solid reality of the earth. You are part of this stillness, as heavy and unmoving as the stones themselves. Your breathing has leveled out into a rhythm that is barely perceptible. It is a shallow, efficient tide that requires no effort, no thought. The air enters cool and clean, tasting of the dry winter night. It leaves warm and soft, in and out. The pause between breaths lengthens, stretching into a moment of perfect suspension where time seems to stop completely. In that pause there is no worry, no memory, no future. There is only the sensation of existing, pure and simple, in the heart of the quiet. The night stretches out in both directions, a limitless plain of time. You are traveling across it without moving, carried by the slow, deep current of sleep. The shore of the morning is too far away to see, too far away to matter. You are in the deep water now, where the surface is calm and the depths are silent. The heaviness of your limbs is a comfort, a sign that the body has given up its vigilance. You sink down, further down, into the soft, embracing dark, resting in the timeless peace of the long, cold night. The silence that fills the room has thickened, becoming a physical weight that rests gently against your chest. It is the specific, heavy silence of the deep middle night, a time when even the nocturnal animals have retreated into their dens to escape the biting cold. The house has ceased its small, settling noises. The timber beams, having contracted fully in the freeze, are now locked in a rigid, silent embrace. The floorboards are still. The door is sealed tight. You are resting in a structure that feels as solid and unmoving as a hollowed-out stone, a sanctuary carved from the very substance of the winter night. High on the glass of the window, the frost has continued its slow, artistic conquest. The patterns of ice have grown dense and opaque, blocking out the last faint suggestions of the yard beyond. If the moon is still shining, its light is now trapped in this crystalline barrier, diffused into a soft, pearl-gray luminescence that hovers near the frame but cannot penetrate the room. The world outside has been erased, replaced by this white, frozen curtain. You are relieved of the need to see, relieved of the need to witness the night. You are turned inward, floating in the warm, dark center of your own existence. Beneath the layers of wool, the heat is constant and enveloping. It is a humid, living warmth that smells of sleep and linen, a stark contrast to the dry, brittle air that fills the rest of the room. This warmth has relaxed every muscle, unknotted every tendon. Your legs feel incredibly heavy, as if they have turned to lead, sinking deep into the straw mattress until the bed holds you like a mold. Your arms are limp at your sides. Your hands are open and loose. There is no tension left in your body to hold you up. You have surrendered completely to the pull of gravity, allowing the bed to carry your full weight without resistance. The air you breathe is the only moving thing in the stillness. It enters cool and sharp, a refreshing draft that travels down into your lungs, waking the blood with oxygen, before leaving as a soft, warm sigh. This rhythm is hypnotic, a slow, oceanic cycle that rocks you deeper into rest. With every exhalation, you feel a little heavier, a little softer, a little further away from the surface of the world. The pause at the bottom of the breath is a moment of pure suspension, a gap in time where nothing exists but the feeling of peace. Far below the house, the roots of the ancient maples and oaks are gripping the frozen soil in the dark. They are dormant, waiting, holding their energy deep underground where the frost cannot reach. You feel a kinship with these sleeping giants. Like them, you have drawn your energy in, gathering it around the core of your being. You are in a state of human dormancy, a necessary and healing cycle in the living season. The concerns of the harvest, the trade, the distant rumble of the war, these are the concerns of the waking season. Right now, in the deep winter of sleep, they do not apply. The darkness behind your eyes is vast and textureless, a comfortable void that stretches out in all directions. It is not a frightening empty space, but a restful one, like the silence of a deep cave. Thoughts that try to form here are slow and heavy, dissolving like smoke before they can take shape. You watch them fade without interest. You are content to simply float in the nothingness, to let the mind rest as fully as the body. There is no need to dream. There is no need to think. There is only the deep, velvety blackness of the night, holding you safe, holding you still, holding you until the world turns again.
The night has deepened into a profound and motionless state, a vast canyon of time where the hours lose their distinct edges and merge into a single, continuous flow of quiet. The silence in the room is no longer an absence of sound, but a heavy, settling presence that occupies the space like a physical weight. It presses gently against the rough timber walls, seals the gaps in the floorboards, and rests soft and cool against your forehead. You are submerged in this silence, resting at the bottom of a dark, tranquil sea where the currents are slow and the surface is miles above you. The house, built of oak and stone, holds its breath, its frame locked in the rigid stillness of the winter freeze, protecting the warm, beating heart of the room where you lie. High above the chimney, the constellations have continued their slow, grand march toward the western horizon. The great wheel of the sky turns with a precision that is silent and terrifyingly vast. The stars are hard, cold points of light, looking down on a world that has turned to iron and glass under the frost. They see the roof of the farmhouse, white with rime. They see the smoke that has thinned to nothing. They see the dark, empty fields.
This cosmic movement happens without effort, a giant clockwork rotation that carries the night forward while you remain perfectly still, anchored to the warmth of the bed, a small, fixed point in a universe of motion. The hearth, which hours ago pulsed with the memory of fire, has now surrendered its heat entirely to the stone. The ash lies in soft, gray drifts, cold and light as dust. The iron pot hanging from the crane is cold to the touch. The scent of the fireplace has changed, shifting from the sharp, active smell of burning wood to the dry, mineral scent of cold masonry and old soot. This change marks the deepest part of the night, the time when the house is entirely dependent on the warmth stored within its walls and the warmth generated by the sleepers. You are the furnace now, the source of life in the cold room, glowing with a steady, quiet heat beneath the heavy wool. Your breathing has slowed to match the rhythm of the earth itself. It is a long, shallow draft of air, drawn in from the cool stillness of the room and released back into the warmth of the bedding. In and out. The sound is barely audible, a soft whisper that is absorbed instantly by the dark. Your heart beats with a calm, heavy thud, pushing the blood through your veins like a slow, warming river. You can feel the pulse of it in your heavy hands, in your relaxed feet, a gentle, rhythmic reminder of your own existence. There is no urgency in this pulse. It is the steady, patient beat of hibernation. Far beyond the walls, the river that cuts through the valley is moving sluggishly beneath a thick ceiling of ice. The water is dark and cold, flowing in silence toward the sea. In the deep pools, the fish are suspended in the current, their movements slow, their world reduced to the dim, filtered light of the winter depth. You feel a kinship with this hidden water. Your mind has become a deep, slow river, flowing quietly in the dark. Thoughts drift like fallen leaves on the surface, spinning slowly in the eddies before sinking out of sight. You are content to let them go, to let the current carry them away, leaving the water clear and still. The darkness behind your eyes is soft and endless, a velvet void that offers no resistance. It is a place of total rest, where the boundaries of the self dissolve. You are no longer defined by your name or your work or your history. You are simply a consciousness floating in the warm, safe dark. The sensation of the bed has faded into a general feeling of support. The weight of the blankets is a comfort that goes down to the bone. You sink further, drifting down through the layers of the night, past the reach of the cold, past the memory of the light, into the deep, timeless peace that waits at the bottom of the sleep. The stillness of the room has acquired a texture of absolute permanence, as if the air itself has solidified into a clear, cold amber that holds everything in suspension. There is no longer any sense of the house settling or shifting. The timbers have found their final resting place for the night, locked together by the grip of the freeze. The floorboards are silent. The door is sealed. The entire structure has become a single, motionless object, a hollowed-out block of silence standing firm against the vast, empty landscape. You are resting at the very center of this block, protected by the density of the wood and the stone, floating in a bubble of warmth that feels completely detached from the passage of time. The light in the room has changed again, dimming to a level where sight becomes irrelevant. The moon has moved behind the roofline, taking its silver beams with it, leaving behind a uniform, soft gray darkness. The shapes of the furniture, the tall wardrobe, the low chest, have lost their definitions, melting back into the shadows from which they emerged. They are just heavy presences now, silent companions in the dark. You can feel them there, anchoring the room, but you do not need to see them. You are free to close your eyes and let the visual world dissolve entirely, replacing it with the simple, tactile reality of the bed. Beneath the heavy layers of the quilt, the heat is constant and enveloping. It is a humid, personal warmth that seems to radiate from your own skin, trapped by the tight weave of the wool. The blankets press down with a reassuring, even weight, settling into the hollows of your shoulders and the curve of your back. This pressure is a signal to the body, a constant reminder that it is safe to let go. You feel grounded, held fast to the mattress, as if gravity has increased just enough to make rising impossible. The effort of movement is a distant concept belonging to a different person in a different season. Here there is only the sweet, heavy inertia of rest. Outside, the air is brittle and dry, frozen into a stillness that feels fragile, as if a single sound might shatter it like glass. But there is no sound. The wind has abandoned the valley, leaving the trees to stand in stark, silent vigil. The branches of the oaks are motionless black lines against the stars. The pines are dark, triangular shadows, their needles coated in rime. In the deep woods beyond the farm, the silence is total. The animals are asleep in their burrows, their heartbeats slowed to a crawl. The sap in the maples is frozen in the veins of the wood. You are part of this great, dormant heart of the winter. Your breath enters the room as a faint, rhythmic whisper, the only movement in a motionless world. You draw in the cool, clean air, tasting the dust of the frost, and you release it as a soft cloud of warmth. In and out. The rhythm is slow, circular, and automatic. It rocks you gently, like a boat on a calm sea. With each exhalation, the tension in your chest unspools a little further. The muscles of your face relax, smoothing away the expressions of the day. You are becoming a blank slate, washed clean by the silence and the dark. Time stretches out into a vast, featureless plain. The hours before dawn are not measured in minutes, but in the slow deepening of the peace. You are traveling across this plain without taking a step, carried by the deep, steady current of the night. There is no destination to reach, no deadline to meet. There is only the long, quiet journey through the dark, a passage that heals and restores. The night wraps you in its heavy arms, shielding you from the light, shielding you from the noise, holding you safe in the deep, timeless comfort of the sleep. You sink down, weightless and free, drifting further into the soft, endless velvet of the dark. The quiet that permeates the room has become absolute, a dense and heavy atmosphere that feels as though it has been undisturbed for 1,000 years. There is no vibration in the air, no tremor in the floorboards. The house has settled completely into the frozen earth, its timber frame locked rigid by the cold, becoming as still and silent as the stones in the field. You are resting in the deep, warm hollow of the bed, protected by this silence. It wraps around you like a second skin, separating you from the world, separating you from the passage of time. You are no longer waiting for the morning. You are simply existing in the long, dark pause of the night. The cold air in the room hovers motionless above the bedding, a silent, invisible presence that cannot reach you. It presses against the heavy wool of the quilts, seeking a way in, but the barrier is impenetrable. Under the blankets, the heat is constant and tropical, a reservoir of warmth generated by your own life and preserved by the dense weave of the fabric. This contrast is the defining sensation of the night. The knowledge that the air just inches away is freezing makes the warmth you feel seem richer, deeper, and more precious. You are a small, self-contained world of comfort, floating in a universe of cold. High on the window pane, the frost has continued its silent work, thickening into an opaque shield of ice. The intricate ferns and ridges of white have merged into a solid sheet that blocks all view of the yard. Even if the stars are burning bright and cold overhead, their light can no longer penetrate this crystalline curtain. The room is left in a soft, uniform darkness, devoid of shadows, devoid of shapes. It is a restful darkness, demanding nothing from your eyes. You are free to let your vision rest, to turn inward to the velvet blackness behind your eyelids, where the only landscape is peace. Your breathing has found a rhythm that is as slow and steady as the rotation of the earth. It is a shallow, effortless tide that rises and falls without your conscious direction. You draw in the cool, dry air of the room, tasting the faint minerality of the stone hearth, and you release it as a soft, warm sigh. In and out. The sound is absorbed instantly by the heavy silence of the house. With each breath, you feel a little heavier, a little more anchored to the mattress. The tension of the day has unspooled completely, leaving your limbs loose and your mind clear. Beneath the floor, the earth is locked in a deep regenerative sleep. The roots of the great oaks in the forest are dormant, holding their energy deep in the ground where the frost cannot reach. The seeds in the garden are suspended in the cold soil, waiting in the dark for a distant spring. You are part of this great natural cycle of rest. Like the trees and the seeds, you have drawn your energy inward, gathering it around the core of your being. You are hibernating in the safety of the house, pausing in the long, slow rhythm of the seasons. Time has ceased to be a line and has become a deep, still pool. The hours before dawn are vast and unmapped. You are drifting across them slowly, carried by a current that moves without sound. There is no destination to reach. There is no shore in sight. There is only the sensation of floating in the warm, dark water of sleep. The concerns of the waking world, the labor, the trade, the war, have dissolved like salt in water. They do not exist here. In this moment, there is only the weight of the blanket, the softness of the straw, and the deep, endless comfort of the winter night. You sink down, weightless and free, settling into the profound, heavy silence of the deep sleep.
The silence in the room has settled into a deep, abiding heaviness, a weight that rests comfortably against the timber walls and the rough floorboards. It is the kind of quiet that feels solid, as if the air itself has frozen into a block of stillness. There is no vibration to disturb it, no distant sound to ripple through it. The house holds this silence like a precious cargo, protecting it from the vast, empty winds that might scour the fields outside. You are resting at the very bottom of this quiet, submerged in a peace that feels as old as the earth itself. The only reality is the dark, the warmth, and the slow, steady rhythm of your own existence. High above the roof, the night sky has turned a wheel of degrees, shifting the constellations further toward the western horizon. The stars are burning with a cold, hard brilliance, their light traveling through the vacuum of space to touch the frost on your chimney. They look down on the sleeping world with an indifferent, ancient gaze. They see the white curve of the hills. They see the black line of the forest. They see the farmhouse, dark and silent, a small wooden ship anchored in a sea of snow. Knowing that this vast cosmic machinery is turning overhead, precise and silent, allows you to let go of the need to track the time. The universe is keeping watch. You are free to sleep. Inside the room, the cold has continued its slow, patient work. It has seeped into the corners, chilling the iron of the hinges and the stone of the hearth. It presses against the heavy wool of the blankets, a silent reminder of the winter's power. But it cannot reach you. You are sealed in a fortress of heat, a tropical island of linen and wool that floats in the freezing dark. The contrast is a physical pleasure. The air that touches your face is sharp and clean, while the air that surrounds your body is thick and warm. You are suspended between these two extremes, held in a perfect, comfortable balance. Your breathing has become the only measure of time in the motionless room. It is a slow, shallow tide that washes in and washes out, requiring no effort, no will. You draw in the stillness and you release the fatigue. The sound is barely a whisper, a soft rustle that is instantly absorbed by the heavy bedding. Your heart beats with a calm, heavy thud, a slow drum that echoes the dormant rhythm of the land. There is no urgency in this pulse. It is the steady, patient beat of survival, driving the blood through your veins in a long, warming loop. Far beneath the floorboards, the earth is locked in a deep, regenerative slumber. The soil is hard as stone, the water in the ground frozen into stillness. The roots of the trees are waiting in the dark, holding their life in reserve. You feel a kinship with this hidden world. Like the roots, you are dormant. Like the soil, you are at rest. You have withdrawn from the surface, sinking down into the deep, protected core of your own being. The concerns of the harvest, the trade, the distant rumble of history, these things belong to the waking world. Here, in the deep winter of sleep, there is only the quiet. The darkness behind your eyes is a vast, soft space, devoid of shapes or colors. It is a restful void, a place where the mind can unspool and dissolve. Thoughts that drift through this space are slow and formless, like clouds moving across a moonless sky. They do not demand attention. They do not require action. You watch them pass with a detached calm, letting them fade back into the velvet blackness. You are content to simply exist, floating in the warm, safe dark, drifting on the slow current of the night toward a morning that is still hours away. The peace is total. The rest is profound. You sink down, weightless and free, into the heavy, healing silence of the deep sleep.